But going over to some of the NFL teams that I want to talk about, I mentioned like we have a better record than the Bengals right now. And we're panicking more than the Bengals. Now, granted, the Bengals didn't lose Joe Burrow last night, but the way he's been playing right now, I don't know, man. I mean, it's not great. It's very weird. And even with Burrow coming back from injury for the second straight year in the open season, I don't know. Right now, the Bengals just kind of look like the same vanilla offense they've had for the last 2 years, to where it becomes so predictable that teams can just expect what's coming.
I think that's definitely a factor. I think that there's two sides to each side, two sides of this. Joe Burrow, I believe, is now 1-6 within the first 2 weeks of the NFL season as a starting quarterback. This is a team that doesn't start off hot. This is a team that gets hot late, and we've seen that over the past 2, 3 seasons, right? I mean, they're a team that come week 14, 15, 16 to the playoffs, you don't want to see. I mean, they go to Kansas City, they beat the Chiefs, go to the Super Bowl last year. Uh, they get a playoff win and have Kansas City on the ropes again before a late hit out of bounds. Joe Burrow, though, Mitch, looks like he re-aggravated that calf injury. And there's question if he'll play Monday night. If this team
Yeah.
falls to 0-3, then they're in big trouble. They're 0-2 in the division, though. That is what's big. And that's why last
Yes.
night's loss also hurts for us, Mitch, because we could have been 2-0 in the AFC North. And that would have meant so much more because I think the AFC North winner could very well have 10 wins and be 3-3 in the division at best, if not 4-2. And starting out 2-0 would have been huge, knowing that you got one on the road, one against the Bengals. You would have Pittsburgh at home still, Baltimore at home still, and on the road, and then Cincy on the road. But this Bengals team does not look good. I'm not going to write them off, though, because of the track record they
Sure.
have. But if he doesn't play Monday, and the Rams, who I think are pretty surprising given the fact that Cooper Cup's out and how they've played their first 2 games, if that team goes into Cincinnati and they start off 0-3, I think all hell might break loose in Cincinnati. They might think the sky's falling. That's if Burrow plays. If Burrow doesn't play, I don't really know how they could say that if they lose that game with the backup quarterback playing. But the Ravens look good. The Bengals do not. I'm not writing the Bengals off. We've also seen this from the Ravens before. I am not, especially after last night, I am not wishing injury upon anybody, but we've seen the Ravens start off hot, and then usually around weeks 9, 10, 11, guys start to get hurt. And we'll see. This is a team that the Browns play the Ravens in week 4 before they head into that week 5 bye. They're going to have to beat Tennessee. And the only reason I'm nervous about the Browns in Tennessee is because Tennessee has the capability to pull every single team they play down to their level. You just saw it with the Chargers last week. Is it going to happen with the Browns? We'll have to wait and see. But the Bengals right now, this is a must win for them in week 3. To start off 0-3, 2 of your losses at home and 0-2 in the division, that would be a catastrophic start for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned that Chargers game. I'm out on Brandon Staley too. I mean, I know I
Yeah.
picked him last year for coach. It's just, what do you do? What do you do when you throw that many touchdowns, when you don't have no turnovers, and yet you're still letting these teams come back and beat you? It's kind of insane. You mentioned the Baker game, beating the Bears. Unfortunately, that's not what I want to talk about. It's is Justin Fields really not the guy? Really? Like
I don't know.
what the hell happened? It's like he doesn't. It's like it's not like what he was at Ohio State. And granted, everyone's gonna say, "Oh, Ohio State quarterback. What'd you expect?" I expected more of a playmaker and a guy that could at least take more than 2 seconds to figure out where he's going to throw the football. And granted, a lot of the Bears' offense isn't fantastic right now. You got DJ Moore who isn't playing great, and Chase Claypool didn't seem like he was trying first week. But I wanted this team. I wanted him to be better. I wanted him to be better than what I'm seeing right now. And to see people calling him one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL is heartbreaking, man. That we've seen what he can do.
I know. We saw it last year. They were, Mitch, they had to have been the most fun 2-15 team or 2-14 team last year that we've ever seen. They got the number one
One of
pick and
them.
traded away. Now they have 2 first-round picks this year,
Yeah.
but it's not so much him needing help. It's the offensive coordinator putting him in the right spot. And they called the same play 3 times in a row and eventually got picked off for a touchdown. That is just I can't fathom that. And the Bears team, Mitch, there's always a team every year. And in the AFC, it certainly seems like it's the Steelers. In the NFC, I think it might have been the Bears that everybody was high on, thinking, "Oh, this is the team that's going to make a run." No, this Bears team was not ready to make a run. But with where Justin Fields is at, I I don't know what happens. I mean, we know he's not a pure pocket passer, but he could definitely have the same type of success I think Lamar Jackson has in terms of I think coming out of college, Justin Fields was a better passer than Lamar Jackson was. Lamar, just a better pure overall athlete, being able to run, create plays. Fields has that capability. But CJ Stroud in Houston already has more 300-yard passing games in his career in 2 games than Justin Fields does in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
That is concerning because the Texans' offensive line, terrible. The Texans' team, probably worse overall than what the Bears' team is. I don't know. And the Bears go to Kansas City this week. It's not going to get any easier for the Chicago Bears. And this Bears team is in a very, very tough spot. And I really hope Fields can get it turned around, Mitch, because I want him to be the guy for Chicago. I want him to have success. But at the same time, things do not look good whatsoever.
It's not going to be easy. I think they could catch Kansas City at the right time because Kansas City does not look great the first 2 weeks, even though they are playing close games. Speaking of, well, this one's not a close game, but the Cowboys and the Jets was funny to watch because you got to see the effects of putting on Zach Wilson full time. Did have that one to Garrett Wilson, but again, it was like Pickens. If Garrett Wilson can will Zach Wilson into good play, then that's one thing. Look, I feel like it is too early for me to make this statement, but I'm going to make it anyway. I think the Dallas Cowboys might be the most complete team in the NFL right now. And I say this after they've played 2 teams that have not looked fantastic. I understand this. But Dak Prescott is throwing the ball pretty well for the most part. That defense looks insane. They just obliterated a Jets defense that made their own case for being good against the Bills. I don't know if this team can last the whole season at this level. That's going to be the test. And if you last the whole season, then you have to go into the preseason. And if you last in the preseason, you got to make it all the way to the NFC Championship to finally silence all the people who expect the San Francisco 49ers to just beat you out again. Now, granted, who knows what the odds are of them facing off in the playoffs again, but this is where I'm at right now, to where Dallas is like, I'm looking at this Dallas team, I'm like, okay, we've seen stuff like this before. And then I think, no, we haven't. This team looks actually better than the ones we've seen before. I part of me kind of hopes I'm right, and we get to see this Dallas team kind of match up to Philadelphia a little bit. Even after Philadelphia has looked not that impressive against the likes of the Patriots and the Vikings this year, the Vikings who are probably going to trade Kirk Cousins here in a few weeks.
Well, I'm to you hoping you're right. I don't. I love when the Cowboys fail. It makes football 10 times better. Them staying on this, the America's team. They're not America's team. Let's cut that crap right now. If you ask anybody in most other states that have professional football teams, nobody gives a crap about the Cowboys. If anything, people like when they lose.
Right.
They beat the Giants, and listen, I'll give them their flowers. That was one of the most impressive games I've ever seen a defense play. The way it just imposed their will on the Giants. The Giants looked like the worst team at football week 1. And then the Jets game, they did what they had to do. And I'm not a Dak, fan or believer. He's a top 10 quarterback. He played well against the Jets, 31-38, 255 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Those stats, to me, he was more of a game manager. Didn't try to do too much. Mike McCarthy calling the plays now. We know he likes to run. Pollard had 72 yards. Vaughn had 16. Dowdle, 26 yards. Don't even know who that is. Because it's a third-string running back. He's getting rushing attempts. Mike McCarthy had shown you, granted, it was with a top 5 quarterback at the time, probably one of the greatest quarterbacks of our generation, Aaron Rodgers. He can win a Super Bowl. He's also notorious for falling apart late. And so this Cowboys team, I think, given the schedule and the Jets not having Aaron Rodgers, not lucked out, but they've played 2 of the lesser football teams in the National Football League so far. They're going to have to prove it. They will prove it here as the season continues to go on, but their defense is legit. They are the second best defense right now in the NFL statistically, which is crazy because they're behind the Cleveland Browns, and we're 1-1. Cleveland Browns have only given up 14 points, 2 touchdowns in 2 games so far. The Cowboys given up less, but when it comes to percentages and all those other metrics and stats, the Browns actually rank number 1 overall right now, followed by the Cowboys. And then to me, I think it's the Cowboys and the Niners are the best defenses, and defense wins championships. So, Mitch, to your point, we might be on a collision course to see these 2 teams meet up in the playoffs yet again. And the Cowboys are going to have to try to shake all the ghosts they've ever had. recently of not being able to beat the San Francisco 49ers, no matter who the quarterback is. The defense is good. Dak Prescott has played solid so far. This is a team I'm not going to buy right now. I want to see them do
Fair,
it longer.
fair, totally fair. A couple other 2-0 teams, Miami, of course. You could buy. I would think people are buying them more often than people are buying Dallas right now because they looked good against the Chargers, looked good against Tampa Bay or New England. Um, the offense looks good, and if Tua can keep it up, stay healthy, they got something special. Baltimore, obviously, you got those two games. Dallas and Philadelphia, we mentioned them. Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay are 2-0, like which is insane to me. That whole NFC South is going to come back down to earth here in a few weeks, but again, I don't really know who can. Maybe the Saints just because they have more veterans, but who can last
Yeah,
in
that's
this
what I was going to ask you.
division?
As of right now,
Uh,
who's the team to win the division? There's 3 2-0 teams. They've all done what they needed to do. I think the Falcons have played their style of football right now, which is running back, which is crazy to say, running back by committee, because I think all the running backs are actually pretty good. The Saints, Derek Carr has not looked impressive, but they are one more week away from getting Alvin Kamara back. Jamal Williams getting hurt last night. Hate to see that. I think he's a fan favorite in the NFL. I think he's a very likable guy. And then after that, the Tampa Baker Buccaneers.
Guy, it's been 2 games. I understand he looks like competent. Here's the thing too. I don't. No Browns fan wants to see him pull what Geno Smith and the Seahawks did last year to Russell Wilson and the Broncos, and we'll get to them in a second. No team
I
wants.
do.
You would rather see the Browns miss the playoffs again and Deshaun play poorly and have Baker Mayfield come back,
No, no,
comeback
no,
player of the
not
year.
us, not us make miss the playoffs. But I have nothing against Baker.
I don't
I hope
either,
he
but
has a
it's
phenomenal.
we
phenomenal
got
I'm
rid of him
rooting
for a
for him.
reason because he wasn't performing.
Well, our quarterback now is not performing,
No, that's true.
and he looks terrible. And guess what? We're not going to be able to move off him as easy as it was for Baker.
No,
And if it progresses this way,
might have
it's
to
going
make
to
a
be a
change.
conversation
Yeah,
for mid season. Is it more the quarterback or is the play caller?
right,
And that's the conversation we won't have today because it's only been 2 games. But
right.
Baker's play Baker's played to his strengths. Now here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people took note of. Geno Smith, amazing season last year in Seattle,
Yeah.
right? I mean, totally resurrected his career. That offensive play caller is now in Tampa Bay. And we've
Ah,
already
that's
seen
true.
Baker kind of shake some cobwebs. So when Baker had that really successful rookie year, they got rid of Zampese, who was the quarterback's coach, and they thought it was all Freddie Kitchens. There was very few people saying I think it was Ken Zampese, the quarterback's coach. And when Zampese was gone, that's when things unraveled. Now, was it? I'm not saying that's why it unraveled in 2019.
Yeah,
It could have been Odell. Freddie Kitchens obviously was not a good coach. It could have been anything else, a multitude of reasons. The 2019 Browns team was just so many things wrong with it. You talked about the veterans in New Orleans, and I agree with you. I still think they're probably the favorite to win that division. Tampa Bay, though, has a number of veterans, too, that have also won a Super Bowl recently.
yes,
And I also think this is not a joke on Baker's height.
hmm
But at the same time, Michael Evans didn't get that contract extension. Baker being able to hit Mike Evans right now, Mitch, I think is a combination of Evans wanting to perform to get paid and also Baker having a big target he can see. We know the knock on Baker was his height, can't see over the line. Mike Evans is a tremendous receiver. He's going for his 10th straight 1,000 plus yard receiving season. This is a guy, Mitch, that's probably going to get Hall of Fame consideration, if we're just being honest. I think it's going to come down to the Saints and Bucks, but at the same time, I can't write off the Falcons. But back to the original point, I am rooting for Baker. I think it would be. I'm not rooting for the Browns to fail. I'm a Browns fan first. Obviously, I want Watson to be good, but I do hope Baker latches on in Tampa. I hope he's the guy down there because he still gave us to this point the most memorable season and probably the second or third most memorable season in our lifetime behind the 2007 season when it was his rookie year when all of a sudden we were just fun to watch again when he got thrust into that Thursday night game against the Jets. But I'm happy to see Baker having success. I really am. I am. And I did comment last night for those that didn't see on the Browns post that we lost that should have kept Baker. Should have kept Baker. And I kind of feel that way after 2 games. And anybody, I truthfully think that last night we probably win that game with Jacoby Brissett. That's how I feel.
it also, and I meant to bring this up too. If Deshaun Watson was an objectively full on proof, complete gentleman. We would not care one lick about Baker this year, but it's going to scare me if this trend continues in the next couple of weeks and we start to see what might be allegedly karmatic effects. Last team I wanted to talk about was the sneakily. I mean, I think it's because nobody's talking about them. The 2-0 Washington Commanders, because they've taken a rookie quarterback. They've taken a coach that was on the hot seat. They've taken a team that has underachieved the last couple of years, and they just won 2 straight games. They won their first week game. They survived their second week game after a miracle play from the Broncos, where they had a Hail Mary to the end zone, and then they got away with a roughing the passer pass interference call. And all of a sudden, they're in a good spot right now, which is very fascinating to watch. And I don't know. Time's going to tell if we're going to see this Washington team be able to compete. I highly doubt it alongside Dallas and Philadelphia.
I listen with how Phillies looked, Mitch. I don't think they've looked anything as near as close as they did last year through the first two. Let's keep in mind they lost their defensive coordinator, their offensive coordinator. This is a team I think trying to adjust to things on the fly. I think Dallas right now is the favorite, but I do think I had two teams that I thought were sneaky teams, both in the AFC and NFC, and the one in the NFC was the Commanders. I think Sam Howell actually has potential to be a pretty good quarterback. And the other team in the AFC, the Browns, just so happen to play this week in the Tennessee Titans because I think Mike Vrabel is a really good football coach. And that team, albeit below average at quarterback, still has Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins on his last legs. But I like where the Commanders are. It didn't look pretty week one going up against the Arizona Cardinals. And it certainly didn't look good early on, down 21-3 to the Broncos. But they didn't give up. They fought. They came back. They won. And this is a team that I think that as bad as it looks as they continue to win, they're going to build confidence and continue to get something rolling. And I'm actually excited to see what happens here with the Washington Commanders. Now they play the Bills this week, and then they travel to Philly, but then they come back and they play the Bears and they go to the Falcons. Like this is a team that at 2-0, when you look at their next 4 games, I think 4-2 is a very real possibility for the Washington Commanders.
I was just gonna say if you can go 2-2, that's gonna be a good run for you.